In a family business, there are two types of children, the heir and the spare. My older brother, Mark, was the heir. He had the right last name, the right gender, and a corner office with his nameplate already collecting dust. I was the spare, the daughter, the one with a deep love for our family's legacy, but a portfolio full of modern ideas they never wanted to hear. They thought that by kicking me out, they were protecting their business. They had no idea I was about to become their biggest competitor. If you've ever felt overlooked in favor of a sibling, you're in the right place, so hit that like button and let's get into it. Our family business is Hayes & Co. Fine Furnishings. For 3 generations, we've been making solid, heavy, heirloom quality oak furniture, the kind of stuff your grandparents had. Our company motto, coined by my grandfather, is built for a lifetime. It's a good motto. But in the modern age of fast furniture and minimalist aesthetics, it was starting to sound more like a death sentence. I loved that company. I grew up on the factory floor. The smell of sawdust and varnish, basically my childhood perfume. I knew the names of every craftsman, every finisher, every delivery driver. After getting my degree in industrial design, I came back home, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I saw the history, the legacy, the quality, and I saw a future for it, a future my father and brother seemed completely blind to. My father, Arthur Hayes, was our CEO. He was a man who revered the past. He ran the company exactly the way his father had run it, based on tradition, a firm handshake, and the belief that quality alone was enough to sell a product. My brother, Mark, our VP of operations, was a lazier, more arrogant version of my father. He had the title and the office, but his main contribution to the company was long lunches and a great golf handicap. He was just waiting for my father to retire so he could inherit the throne. And then there was me, Juliana, the head of product development, a title I had basically invented for myself. I was the one who saw the writing on the wall. Our sales were declining, our customer base was aging, and our designs were seen as dated and stuffy. A typical Tuesday morning management meeting was a perfect illustration of our dysfunctional dynamic. The numbers for the fourth quarter are in, our CFO would say, his voice grim. Sales are down another 6%. It's a tough market. My father would grumble. People just don't appreciate real craftsmanship anymore. We just need to stay the course, Mark would add, looking bored. Our brand is our strength. Or I would interject, my voice always a little too eager, a little too passionate for their tastes. We could innovate. I would present my latest idea. I've been analyzing the market trends, I'd say, pulling out charts and graphs. The fastest growing demographic is millennials living in smaller, urban spaces. They don't want a massive oak dining table that seats 12. They want furniture that is modular, sustainable, and sold direct to consumer. I've designed a new line, the Urban Oak Collection. It uses our same high-quality wood, but with a sleeker, modern design and a more accessible price point. We could launch it online, bypassing the traditional retail markup. My father would just shake his head. Modular, sustainable. That's not what a Hayes product is. We build solid, heavy furniture. That's our brand. It's what your grandfather built this company on. That sounds like a lot of work. Mark would whine. An online store, social media? It's a waste of time. Our customers are not on the internet. They're in high-end furniture showrooms. Our old customers are, I would argue, my frustration mounting. But they are literally dying out. We need to find new ones. But it was like talking to a brick wall, a solid oak wall. They saw my ideas not as innovation, but as an insult to our family's legacy. And Mark saw my ambition as a direct threat to his authority. He knew I was more competent. He knew the employees on the factory floor respected me more. They'd come to me with production problems, not him. He knew our biggest clients would call my cell phone, not his, to solve an issue. And he resented me for it. He would use every opportunity to undermine me, to belittle my ideas in front of our father. Oh, here goes Juliana with another one of her trendy ideas from a blog post, he'd say with a smirk. I would leave those meetings, my heart heavy with a frustration so deep it felt like grief. I was watching my family's legacy, the company I loved, slowly dying from a terminal case of stubbornness and pride. I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just bring ideas to meetings anymore. I had to show them. I decided to create a full, comprehensive business plan for the new Urban Oak collection. I would do the market research, build the financial models, create the prototypes, and design the entire marketing and launch strategy. I would present them with a plan so undeniable, so well-researched, so professional, that they would have no choice but to see the light. I spent the next 3 months pouring every spare moment into the project. I worked late nights in my office and spent my weekends in the design workshop, working with a few of our younger, more forward-thinking craftsmen who were just as frustrated as I was. I was building a blueprint for the future of Hayes & Co. I felt a deep sense of foreboding as I put the finishing touches on the presentation. I knew this was my last stand. This proposal was either going to be the beginning of a new, brighter era for our company, or it was going to be the reason I was kicked out for good. But I had to try. I loved the company too much to just stand by and watch it die. The day I presented my proposal felt like the most important day of my life. I had scheduled a formal meeting in the main boardroom, just with my father and my brother, Mark. I didn't want any distractions, any other voices. I wanted them to see the pure, undeniable logic of my plan. I walked in that morning feeling a strange mixture of terror and exhilaration. I had spent 3 months creating a lifeline, and I was about to find out if they would grab it, or if they would let the family company drown. I gave the presentation of my life. I was no longer the quiet, eager-to-please daughter. I was a professional. I was confident. I laid out the stark reality of our declining sales. The demographic data showing our customer base was aging into obsolescence. The market analysis of our nimble, direct-to-consumer competitors who were eating us alive. Then, I unveiled the solution, the Urban Oak collection. I had brought in the prototypes my team, and I had built a sleek, minimalist coffee table with hidden storage, a modular shelving unit that could be configured in a dozen different ways, a simple, elegant dining chair that was both beautiful and stackable. This, I said, my voice ringing with a passion I couldn't hide, is the future of Hayes & Co. It honors our legacy of using high-quality, solid oak, but it speaks to a new generation. It's sustainable, it's adaptable, and most importantly, it's profitable. I have the financial projections right here. I presented my comprehensive business plan, the online store, the social media marketing strategy, the streamlined production process that would actually lower our costs. It was a flawless, airtight, and deeply researched plan to save our dying company. When I finished, the room was silent. My father, Arthur, was looking at the prototypes with a thoughtful, if wary, expression for a fleeting moment. I thought I had gotten through to him. But then Mark spoke, and with his first words, my hope began to die. "It's a joke," he said with a short, sharp laugh. He picked up one of the beautiful, minimalist dining chairs. "This isn't a Hayes chair. This is something you'd buy at IKEA. It's cheap looking." "It's not cheap, Mark. It's clean," I countered. "It's modern. And the profit margin on this one chair is 30% higher than on our best-selling dining table." "I don't care about the profit margin," he sneered, his jealousy now on full display. "I care about our brand, our legacy, and this," he said, waving a dismissive hand at my work, "is an insult to what Grandpa built. You want to throw away 100 years of tradition to chase some fleeting internet trend? It's pathetic." He turned to my father, who was now looking at me with a new, dawning disappointment. "See, Dad," Mark said, his voice full of a false, filial concern. "This is what I've been talking about. She doesn't respect our way of doing things. She doesn't respect our legacy. She thinks she knows better than both of us." "That's not true," I pleaded, turning to my father. "I'm trying to save the legacy, Dad. Look at the numbers. The company is bleeding money. The way we do things is driving us into the ground. This is our only way out." My father stood up, his face a mask of cold, hard disappointment. He looked at me, not as his daughter, but as a threat, an insurrectionist. "Mark is right, Juliana," he said, his voice quiet and heavy with a finality that chilled me to the bone. "Your ambition, it has become a problem. You are not a team player. You are constantly trying to change things, to undermine me, to undermine your brother. You are disruptive. Disruptive, I repeated, my voice a whisper. I'm trying to save your company. No, he said. You are trying to turn it into something it's not, something I don't recognize. He walked around his large mahogany desk and sat down in his leather throne. I think it's time you found a different path. Juliana, a simpler job. Something more, suited for a woman. This level of stress and ambition isn't good for you. I just stared at him, my heart shattering into a million pieces. More suited for a woman. As of today, he said, his voice completely devoid of emotion. Your position as head of product development is hereby eliminated. The company is restructuring. We thank you for your service. We will, of course, give you a generous severance package. It's for the best. I looked at my brother. He was leaning against the wall, a smug, triumphant smirk on his face. He had won. He had successfully, finally, eliminated his only competition. I was stunned into silence. I had walked in here to save my family's company. And I was walking out fired, exiled, kicked out of my own family's business by my father and my brother. I don't remember walking back to my office. The next thing I knew, I was standing in front of my desk, a cardboard box in my hands. I mechanically began to pack up my personal belongings, a photo of my grandparents, a few design awards, my favorite coffee mug, the few employees who were still there, the ones I had worked with, the ones who had helped me build the prototypes, watched me with sad, pitying eyes. They knew what had just happened. They knew who the real talent was, and they knew she was being forced to leave. As I walked towards the exit, my box in my arms, I passed by my old office. The door was open, and Mark was already inside, talking on the phone with a furniture company, measuring my old desk for a new, bigger one for himself. The betrayal was absolute. It was a cold, hard, physical thing. They hadn't just rejected my ideas. They had rejected me. They had chosen to let their legacy slowly rust and decay rather than let me, their daughter, their sister, be the one to save it. I got into my car in the parking lot. On the passenger seat sat the thick-bound copy of my business plan, the blueprint for the Urban Oak Collection, a blueprint for success, my success. A cold, hard resolve began to form in the ashes of my heartbreak. They had taken my job, they had taken my legacy, but they had made one fatal, critical mistake. They couldn't take my ideas, and I was about to make them regret that more than anything else in the world. The first week after my exile was a blur of gray, silent rage. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the sad cardboard boxes that contained my professional life. The severance check my father had given me sat on the coffee table, untouched. It felt less like a generous parting gift, and more like hush money, a payment to ensure I disappeared quietly and didn't make a scene. For a few days, I let the grief and the anger wash over me. I mourned the loss of my job, yes, but more than that, I mourned the loss of my family. The betrayal by my own father and brother was a wound so deep I wasn't sure it would ever heal. My boyfriend, a kind, steady architect named Ben, was my rock. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just sat with me in the quiet, made me food I didn't feel like eating, and listened as I vented my fury and my heartbreak. They're fools, Juliana, he said one evening, after I had spent an hour pacing my living room, ranting about their stubborn, short-sighted pride. Absolute, blind fools. That business plan was brilliant. Any investor in the country would have jumped at the chance to fund it. Their loss is going to be, well, it's going to be spectacular. His unwavering belief in me was the one thing that kept me from completely spiraling. But the doubt was still there, a poisonous whisper in the back of my mind. Maybe they were right. Maybe the ideas were too risky. Maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am. Maybe I'm just a disruptive, ambitious woman who should have known her place. The turning point came a week later. I was sitting on my sofa, staring at the thick, bound copy of my business plan for the Urban Oak Collection that was sitting on my coffee table like a tombstone. I picked it up, my intention to throw it in the trash, to get rid of the last, painful reminder of my failure. But I couldn't do it. I opened it instead, my fingers tracing the charts, the graphs, the detailed market analysis. I looked at the sleek, beautiful designs I had sketched, The financial projections I had triple-checked. The data was sound. The designs were innovative. The marketing plan was solid. And in a moment of sudden, painful clarity, I realized the truth. They hadn't rejected the plan. They had rejected me. The plan wasn't the problem. The numbers weren't the problem. The problem was that the person presenting it was their daughter, their little sister, the spare, not the heir. My competence was a threat to my brother's fragile ego, and my modern vision was an insult to my father's traditionalist pride. They didn't want to save the company if it meant admitting I was the one who was right. A new feeling, a feeling far more powerful than grief, began to unfurl in my chest. It was a cold, hard, and deeply liberating fury. "Fine," I whispered to the empty room. "If they don't want it, I'll do it myself." The idea, once it took hold, was an all-consuming fire. The victim who had been mourning her losses was gone. In her place, a CEO was being born. I spent the next 2 days in a frenzy of activity. I didn't touch the severance check from my father. That was tainted money. Instead, I went to my own bank and took a hard look at my personal savings. I had always been responsible, always saved aggressively. It was a substantial nest egg. I cashed out a portfolio of stocks I had invested in years ago. It was enough. It was a risk, a massive one. But for the first time in my life, I was betting on the one person I knew I could trust myself. My boyfriend, Ben, was my biggest supporter. When I told him my crazy, audacious plan, he didn't blink. "It's the best idea I've ever heard," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "You're not just building a company, Juliana. You're building your own future. How can I help?" The first step was finding a space. I didn't need a fancy office. I needed a workshop. I found a small, dusty, and incredibly cheap warehouse space for rent in an industrial part of town. It wasn't much, but it had high ceilings, good light, and a concrete floor that could handle heavy machinery. It was perfect. The next day, I filed the incorporation papers. I named my new company Phoenix Innovations. It felt appropriate. I was rising from the ashes of my old life. The moment I signed my own name on the document, under the title Founder and Chief Executive Officer, was more satisfying than any promotion my father could have ever given me. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed a team, and I knew exactly who to call. I made 2 phone calls. The first was to a man named Carlos, the head craftsman on the factory floor at Hayes & Co. He was a master woodworker who had worked for my family for 30 years, a man whose hands could create magic from a simple block of oak. He was also deeply frustrated with the company's refusal to innovate. The second call was to a young, brilliant designer named Maria, who I had mentored at Hayes & Co. She was full of fresh, exciting ideas, all of which had been systematically shot down by my brother. I asked them both to meet me at my new, empty workshop. They arrived looking confused and wary. I laid out my plan. "I'm starting my own company," I told them, my voice ringing with a conviction I didn't know I had. "I'm going to build the Urban Oak Collection, the one they rejected. I can't pay you what my dad paid you. Not yet. The money is tight, and the risk is high. But what I can offer you," I said, looking them both in the eye, "is a piece of the company. I'm offering you profit sharing. I'm offering you creative freedom. I'm offering you the chance to build something new, from the ground up, a place where good ideas are celebrated, not shot down." Carlos looked around the dusty, empty workshop. Then he looked at me, a slow grin spreading across his weathered face. "I've been waiting 20 years for someone to shake up that old place," he said. "I'm in." Maria just looked at me, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude. "You're really going to do it?" she asked. I corrected her. "We are going to do it." She just nodded, a huge smile on her face. "Okay, boss, what's our first move?" I stood there, in the middle of my empty warehouse, with my 2 new partners, my tiny, loyal team. We had no furniture, no machinery, no clients. All we had was a shared sense of purpose, a brilliant idea, and a blueprint for success sitting on a dusty concrete floor. The pain of my family's betrayal was still there, a sharp ache in my chest, but for the first time, it was overshadowed by something else, a wild, terrifying, and absolutely exhilarating sense of hope. The Phoenix was finally, truly, beginning to rise. The first few months of Phoenix Innovations were a blur of sawdust, sweat, and takeout coffee. We didn't have a fancy office or a board of directors. We had a dusty, drafty warehouse, 3 dedicated employees, and a shared, burning desire to prove my family wrong, while my brother, Mark, was likely enjoying long, boozy lunches on the company dime at Hayes & Co. I was on my hands and knees, helping Carlos, my master craftsman, assemble a second-hand CNC machine we had bought at an auction. While my father was probably playing golf with his cronies, I was learning how to code the back end of our e-commerce website. This wasn't just a company, it was a rebellion. And I was its leader. Ben, my boyfriend, was our biggest supporter. He would show up at the workshop after his own long day at his architecture firm with pizza and beer, his eyes shining with pride as he watched the tangible results of our hard work. He helped us paint the small office space we built in the corner of the warehouse. He never once doubted me. He just saw the fire in my eyes and knew better than to stand in the way. Our vision was clear, and it was the exact opposite of everything Hayes & Co. stood for. We weren't just building furniture. We were building a brand for a new generation. We sourced our oak from sustainable, local forests. Carlos, freed from the rigid, traditionalist constraints of my father's designs, created pieces that were sleek, clever, and beautiful. Maria, my brilliant young designer, built a social media presence that was authentic and engaging. We didn't have a marketing budget, so we sent a few of our first pieces to a handful of small, up-and-coming design influencers, not with a contract, but with a simple, handwritten note telling our story. We worked 18-hour days, fueled by cheap coffee and a shared sense of purpose. We were building our rocket ship while the Hayes & Co. empire was slowly, quietly rusting away. After 3 months of grueling, exhilarating work, we were ready. We had a small but beautiful collection of our first 5 pieces from the Urban Oak collection. We had a sleek, user-friendly website, and we had a warehouse stocked with enough inventory for what we predicted would be a slow first month of sales. The night we officially launched the website was quiet and nerve-wracking. The 3 of us, me, Carlos, and Maria huddled around a single laptop in the middle of the workshop floor. The smell of fresh-cut oak in the air. I took a deep breath, and I clicked publish. Phoenix Innovations was live. For the first hour, nothing happened. We just sat there, staring at the screen, a pit of anxiety in my stomach. Maybe they were right. A small, treacherous voice whispered in my mind. Maybe this was all just a foolish, expensive mistake. And then, a small cha-ching sound came from the laptop. Our first order. A woman in Ohio had just bought one of our modular shelving units. We all screamed, a spontaneous, joyous shout that echoed through the empty warehouse. We hugged each other, laughing with a mixture of relief and pure delight. Then came another cha-ching, and another. By the end of the night, we had sold over a dozen pieces. By the end of the week, we had sold out of our entire initial inventory. We were not prepared for the explosion that followed. One of the design influencers we had sent a coffee table to posted a picture of it in her beautiful, minimalist apartment. She didn't just post a picture, she raved. She talked about the quality of the craftsmanship, the beauty of the design, the story of our small, American-made company. Her post was shared by a larger design blog, and that blog post was then picked up by a major online home design magazine. The article went viral. It was titled "The New Heirlooms: How One Scrappy Startup is Reinventing American Furniture." After that, the floodgates opened. Our website crashed twice from the traffic. Orders poured in from all over the country, and then from all over the world. We were completely, totally overwhelmed. The 3 of us were suddenly running a company that was growing at an exponential rate. We worked 20-hour days just to keep up with the demand. It was the most exhausting, stressful, and absolutely exhilarating time of my life. I was so consumed with building my new empire that I barely had time to think about my old one. But I would hear things through the industry grapevine. I heard that my father and brother were dismissing Phoenix Innovations as a flash in the pan. A friend of mine, who still worked in the sales department at Hayes & Co., called me one day. "You will not believe this, Juliana," she said, her voice a hushed whisper. Your dad and Mark were just in a meeting talking about this new internet company that's stealing their market share, Mark said. These online companies pop up all the time. They have no staying power. Our customers value real quality, a real brand, not some trendy garbage sold by a bunch of nobodies. They still had no idea it was me. They were so blinded by their own arrogance, so certain of their own superiority, that they couldn't even imagine their disruptive little sister could be the one causing all their problems. As our company grew, so did our need for more people, and I knew exactly where to find them. The best craftsmen, the most talented designers, the most dedicated logistics experts. They were all still trapped at Hayes & Co., their talents being wasted under my father's stagnant leadership. I didn't have to poach them. They started coming to me. First, it was two of the senior woodworkers from the factory floor, men who had known me since I was a child, who were tired of their ideas being ignored. Then it was the head of the shipping department, a logistics genius who was fed up with my brother's incompetence. One by one, the best and brightest of Hayes & Co. were quietly sending me their resumes, abandoning the sinking ship and asking for a spot on my rocket. 6 months after our launch, Phoenix Innovations was no longer a scrappy startup. We had moved into a larger facility, we had a team of 20 employees, and we were a recognized, respected, and feared name in the furniture industry. We were preparing for our first major industry trade show in Las Vegas, the biggest event of the year. I stood in our new, bustling workshop, looking at the beautiful, innovative furniture being carefully packed for the show. I looked at my team, my loyal, brilliant team of defectors and believers. We had built this from nothing. The rocket ship was built, and it was on a launch trajectory aimed directly at the heart of my family's crumbling, rusty empire. The trade show was in 2 weeks, and I knew, with a certainty that was both thrilling and terrifying, that our reunion was going to be an interesting one. The 6 months leading up to the annual National Furniture and Design Expo in Las Vegas were a whirlwind. Phoenix Innovations was no longer a fledgling startup. We were a force to be reckoned with. Our order backlog was a mile long. Our designs were being featured in prominent magazines, and we had outgrown our little warehouse twice. I had hired 10 more employees, most of them disillusioned refugees from Hayes & Co., who were thrilled to be working in an environment that valued their skills and creativity. We were the industry's underdog darlings, the scrappy innovators who were making the old guard nervous, and I knew that the trade show would be our official coming-out party. The expo was the biggest event of the year. It was where major retail buyers and hotel groups placed their multi-million-dollar orders for the upcoming seasons. For 30 years, Hayes & Co. had occupied the same prime piece of real estate on the convention floor, a massive, imposing booth that was a testament to their long-standing, if now fading, legacy. This year, right across the aisle from them, was a new booth, just as large, with a sleek, modern design and a simple, fiery logo, a phoenix rising from the flames. Our booth. The week before we were set to fly to Vegas, I was in my office late one night, going over the final logistics for our presentation. An email popped up on my screen. The sender's name made my heart stop. It was from Marcus Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood was the CEO of the Blackwood Hotel Group, one of the most prestigious luxury hotel chains in the world. He was also my father's oldest and most important client. Their relationship went back over 30 years, forged on a golf course handshake between him and my grandfather. The Blackwood contract was the single largest account for Hayes & Co., the bedrock of their entire business. Losing it would be a catastrophic, possibly fatal blow. My hands trembled slightly as I opened the email. Subject: an inquiry regarding Phoenix Innovations. Dear Miss Hayes, my name is Marcus Blackwood. I trust this email finds you well. I am writing to you today with a measure of both professional respect and personal disappointment. My company, the Blackwood Hotel Group, has had a long and fruitful relationship with Hayes & Co. However, over the past year, we have noticed a significant decline in their attention to detail and a complete stagnation in their design offerings. Frankly, their recent proposals have been uninspired. At the same time, I have been hearing significant industry buzz about your new company, Phoenix Innovations, your focus on sustainable, modern design and your direct-to-consumer model are exactly what the market is looking for. I am intrigued. I will be in Las Vegas for the expo next week. I would like to request a private meeting with you to discuss your product line before the show officially opens. I am looking for a new partner to furnish the next generation of Blackwood hotels. Sincerely, Marcus Blackwood. I read the email 3 times. A wave of emotions washed over me. First, a surge of pure, unadulterated triumph. The biggest fish in the sea was tired of my family's stagnant pond and was looking to swim in my fresh, new ocean. But then came a pang of something else, something more complicated. Guilt. This wasn't just a client. This was Mr. Blackwood, a man who had come to our house for dinner when I was a child, a man my father considered a close friend. To actively steal this account felt personal. It felt like a betrayal that went beyond business. I sat there for a long time, the email glowing on my screen. I thought about my father. I thought about my brother. I thought about the cold, dismissive look on their faces as they showed me the door. I thought about them calling my ideas trendy garbage. I thought about them telling me to find a job more suited for a woman. And my guilt vanished, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They didn't value his loyalty. They were taking his business for granted, serving up the same tired designs and assuming he would just accept it because of a 30-year-old handshake. They were disrespecting their best client. He deserved better. And I deserved this. This wasn't a betrayal. This was business. This was the consequence of their own arrogance. I typed out a reply. Mr. Blackwood, it would be my absolute honor. My suite at the Bellagio, Tuesday at 4 p.m. The meeting in Las Vegas was surreal. I sat across from Mr. Blackwood in the living room of my lavish hotel suite, my design portfolio on the table between us. He was an old-school, no-nonsense businessman in his late 60s. With sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. He didn't recognize me, of course. To him, I was just Miss Juliana Hayes, the impressive young CEO of this exciting new company, not Arthur Hayes' daughter. I gave him the pitch of my life. I didn't just show him furniture. I showed him a vision of a partnership, of custom designs tailored to his hotel's brand, of a modern, efficient supply chain, of a commitment to quality and innovation that Hayes & Co. had long since abandoned. He was impressed. I could see it in his eyes. He grilled me with tough questions, and I answered every single one with a confidence and expertise that left no room for doubt. At the end of the 2-hour meeting, he closed my portfolio and leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Young lady," he said, his voice full of a newfound respect. "You are one hell of a businesswoman. You've got a deal. Have your legal team draw up the papers. We're moving our entire national contract for all our new hotel developments, effective immediately, to Phoenix Innovations." I shook his outstretched hand, my own hand steady, my heart singing a triumphant song. I had done it. I had just landed the decisive blow, stealing my family's oldest and most important client right from under their noses. As he stood up to leave, he paused at the door and looked at me, a thoughtful, curious expression on his face. "You know," he said, "you remind me of someone, a fella I've known for years, Arthur Hayes. You've got the same fire in your eyes he had, back when he was young and hungry, before he got old and complacent." I just smiled. "I get that a lot," I said. The stage was now set for the final, public confrontation on the trade show floor, and my family had no idea they were about to walk into their own funeral. The Las Vegas Furniture and Design Expo was the Super Bowl of my industry. It was a sprawling, chaotic, and incredibly important event held in the cavernous Las Vegas Convention Center, and by what I can only describe as a delicious twist of fate, or perhaps some very clever last-minute planning by my team. The booth for Phoenix Innovations was located directly across the aisle from the booth for Hayes & Co. The contrast was brutal. It was a perfect, physical manifestation of the past versus the future. The Hayes & Co. booth was exactly as it had been for the last 30 years. It was a dark, imposing structure, paneled in heavy oak, filled with the same massive, traditional furniture they had been selling since my grandfather's time. It looked like a museum exhibit, and it was just as quiet. My father and my brother, Mark, stood amidst their relics, their faces grim, watching as a slow trickle of older buyers politely passed through with little interest. Our booth, the Phoenix Innovations booth, was the complete opposite. It was bright, open and minimalist, constructed from sustainable bamboo and recycled steel. It was buzzing with energy. Our sleek, modern urban oak collection was on display, and the booth was crammed with excited young designers, influential bloggers, and major retail buyers, all clamoring to get a closer look. We were the talk of the expo. We were the future. For 2 days, I was in my element. I was a CEO. I was a designer. I was a leader. I moved through my bustling booth with a confidence I had never known, giving presentations, shaking hands, and signing deals. And across the aisle, I could feel their eyes on me. I could feel my father's shocked disbelief and my brother's burning, impotent rage. They were forced to watch, in real time, as the world they knew chose my vision over theirs. They saw the buyers from the biggest online furniture retailers flocking to my booth. They saw the editor of a major design magazine interviewing me. And then they saw Marcus Blackwood, the CEO of the Blackwood Hotel Group, their oldest and most important client, walk into my booth, give me a warm hug, and sign a multi-million-dollar contract right there in front of everyone. That was the final, killing blow. Late on the second day, they finally surrendered. I saw them from across the aisle, my father and my brother, walking towards my booth with the slow, defeated steps of men walking to their own execution. They waited awkwardly at the edge of my crowded booth until I had finished signing a deal with a buyer from Crate & Barrel. When I finally turned to them, their faces were a mixture of anger, desperation, and a humiliation so profound it was almost pitiful. "Juliana," my father began, his voice a hoarse whisper, "we need to talk. We're a little busy here." "Dad," I said, my voice cool and professional. "As you can see." "Don't do this, Juliana," Mark hissed, his face pale. "You're trying to destroy us. You stole our employees. You stole our clients." "No, Mark," I corrected him calmly. "I didn't steal anyone. I built a better company, with a better product, and a better vision, and talented people and smart clients were drawn to it. That's not theft. That's capitalism. A concept I thought you, of all people, would appreciate." My father's anger finally crumbled, replaced by a raw, naked desperation. "We lost the Blackwood contract, Juliana," he said, his voice breaking. "After 30 years, he called me this morning, said he was moving on, said we had gotten old and complacent, said he'd found a new partner who reminded him of me. When I was young, he looked me right in the eye. He was talking about you, wasn't he?" I just nodded. "We're going to go bankrupt," he whispered. "The company, everything my father built, it's going to be gone." He looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Acquire us, Juliana. Buy the company. Merge us with Phoenix. You can keep the Hayes name alive. It's the only way." They were begging me to save them, to bail them out of the mess their own pride and prejudice had created. I looked at my father, the man who had called my ideas garbage. I looked at my brother, the man who had called me disruptive and toxic. I thought about the day they had kicked me out of my own office, the office Mark was now occupying. And I felt nothing, no pity, no desire for revenge, just a calm, quiet finality. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it landed with the force of a gavel. "Betrayal," I asked, my voice still even. "No, you didn't just fire an employee that day. You exiled your daughter. You told me my ideas were worthless and that I should go find a job more suited for a woman. So I did. I built this company. A company based on those worthless ideas. A company that is, by every conceivable metric, more successful than yours." I looked from my father to my brother. "And you're asking me to acquire you. Why would I do that? Why would I acquire a company with outdated products, a failing business model, a toxic management culture, and a brand that is dying? Hayes & Co., I said, the words tasting like freedom on my tongue, is not a sound investment. "So, no," I repeated. "I will not be buying your company. I will not be saving your legacy. You had your chance to do that when you still had me, and you threw it, and me, away. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." I turned my back on them, leaving them standing there, two ghosts from a dying empire, in the middle of my bright, bustling, and brilliantly successful new world. I walked back to my team, back to my clients, back to my future. Hayes & Co. filed for bankruptcy 6 months after that trade show. The name my grandfather had built, the legacy my father and brother were so proud of, was sold off for scrap to an overseas conglomerate. My father was forced into a bitter retirement. My brother, Mark, after a period of unemployment, is now a regional sales manager for a mid-sized lumber company. We don't talk. Phoenix Innovations, on the other hand, is the new titan of the American furniture industry. We are renowned for our innovation, our quality, and our integrity. I didn't just build a company. I built a better way of doing business. They kicked me out of my family business because they were afraid of the future, so I went out and I built the future myself. They told me I wasn't a part of their legacy, so I created my own, a better one. The best revenge isn't just success. It's proving that the very ideas someone dismissed as worthless are, in fact, priceless. And that is a satisfaction that no amount of money can buy.